My name's Lorina Gumbs. I'm band leader and co-founder of AnonyMas Carnival Band Leeds. We unofficially started maybe about 2003, kind of got thrown together to do a small project and help out on a costume. And then from there was like, oh yeah, we can do this. And then from there we started making costumes. We didn't really know about all the different techniques and feathers and gems and which glue sticks to use. But it's just, carnival's always been in our blood. It's something we've always wanted to do. So we took part in that. And then from there, we've just progressed. We chose the name AnonyMas because when you love something, you just do it. You don't think about, oh, I need to document it. Oh, I need to take pictures. Oh, I need to think of a name. So we just did, in the early days, we just did carnival costumes for the sake of it. So that's how we chose AnonyMas. But then we chose the word mass at the end because mass is carnival. So you have your mass camps where you make your carnival costumes. You want to play mass. So you're jumping up on the street, taking part in carnival. So it's kind of like we take part in carnival anonymously. AnonyMas today as a band, we make costumes, we do performances like corporate, local, national. We recently got involved in doing production on a virtual carnival, which was kind of fun because we had to delve deep more into the background stuff. We do workshops working with young people, dance. We also run a soca size class, which we've been doing through lockdown virtually on Instagram and the Facebook. But most of all, we're a family. We're a carnival family. And from the experiences I've learned through carnival, I mean, it's taken me to Hong Kong. So from those experiences, it's giving other people, young people, older people, people who say, oh, I haven't played carnival since yesterday. It's like, well, no, you're not too old. It's just giving those opportunities, and it's like, this is where carnival can take you, you know, get involved, get that feel good. It's one of my biggest stress releases is being involved in carnival and jumping up making costumes. Costumes we produce falls into the bracket of pretty mass because you have old mass, you have traditional mass. We tend to be more of a pretty mass where we're gems, bling, feathers, and we have a theme, but we're more of an abstract or a play on that theme. So we only take like maybe an element of that theme and run with it. So you tend to see that we do have maybe a lot of feathers, a lot of bling, so it twinkles. And one of the main reasons is because the feathers give you movement. So when you're dancing, you can just do a little side to side, but with a feathered collar or a feather headdress, it elaborates that movement. The gems and the bling, when the sun hits the gems, everything is just bling, twinkling, and it just looks pretty on the road, and it comes in fast colours. I participate in carnival because I grew up next door to the park where carnival takes place. So I'd look out my window and every carnival, every bank holiday morning, and there would be Leeds troupes coming in every direction to go into the park and watch the parade. It was something when we were younger we used to do with my dad, me and my sister. As it went along, my cousin took me to my first Queen show. Then went on and I actually took part in carnival, and it was the whole process of going to get measured up for my costume, the journey there, picking up my costume, the parading round, going up on the stage. Because I was younger, my cousin told me to just find a spot on the stage and stand there and dance, which I did with my little stick. And then now more so what made me get more involved with it is because I fell back in love with the creative side, because I'm one of those creative people. So this is one of the elements costume. This was water. It's had a little bit of a revamp. So this goes to show you that, you know, no costume is ever too old. So this was originally just the turquoise and the grey, but I added a little bit of the green in it, put a bit more tips on, because when you have more time, you can play around. And as I said, you see just the slightest movement and then it's bouncing. The collar that you can, I don't know if you can see it in the background, that actually went with the headdress, and that was the front line option, where you've got the headdress and you've got the collar to go with it, where the back lines didn't get that, they just got the headdress. I know we get tarnished with the title of that, oh yeah, this is the bra band. And it's not necessarily wear a bra band, because a lot of people who wear the bra alternative, the following year, they're that happy and confident in wearing the costume. They're like, well, no, I'm going to put a bra on. So we're promoting also body confidence and showing, you know, you're confident in your costume. With the feathers, we tend to use cock feathers. When the bleach dyed, they're just giving you a solid colour. So like with these ones, there's no half colours, it's just a solid one. With your half bronzes, let's have a look. Yeah, there you go. With your half bronzes, you've got, it's wherever the dye hits. So these are dyed in blue turquoise, so it'll hit these bits, but then it doesn't hit the ends, so you still got the original colour of the feathers. And they come in various sizes. So the more elaborate, if you want to pull it on a collar, you can have it this way, but then you can get a longer size and it comes out more, so it looks more bigger and flamboyant. We then use pheasants. So you've got your natural dyed coloured pheasants, or you've got your bleached dyed pheasants, which are like these ones again, so it's a solid colour. And you have your Lady Amherst, which are these nice tiger kind of curled ones. I love these, but they're really expensive now. I mean, we do use ostrich, but the reason we use cock feathers more than anything else is that when they get wet, they keep the shape and the style. And if you just blow dry them, they fluff back up. With the ostriches, when they get wet, they just shrink down to nothing and they just look like twigs. So it's a one, we're here in the UK, we have to cater for the weather as well. So I'm going to just do a quick customization of a visor that we have here. Because, you know, summer's coming, so we want to make it look a bit bling. What I have is some hot fix trim. So this is a quick, easy one. Normally I tend to use a lot of gems and bling it up, and I'm just like, you know, let's just keep it simple but effective. So I'm just going to measure it out. Now the nice thing with customizing is it's a way of making something look a little bit more special and give it a little extra touch. Gonna measure the center. A lot of this I can do by eye, but if you're not sure, you can always use a tape measure. But what I'm doing is making it so for the end, from peak to peak, the corner of the peak. So now I'm just going to apply the hot fix gun using hot glue stick. You have to get the right glue stick because otherwise it will just come off. So you need ones that are flexible and durable for plastic, and then you can get ones which are durable for metal as well. So we're going to just press this to make sure. Stage 2 is we're going to give it a few little dangly bits down the side. I've got 2 plastic trims here with a little diamante stone in them. And the reason I'm using plastic is because as well it helps them to last longer as well. Because when you use a metal trim, you find that with the hot weather, the sweat, the colour turns. But with the plastic, it keeps it here a bit longer. This is where it's always useful to have a mirror. Then you can judge how far down you want your danglers. So let's say possibly to that one. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces exactly the same. To go on either side. I have a thin with number 3s, so I like to do them in 3s. And then I'm going to cut this nice rose gold, which matches the same lining as the visor, just a little bit shorter. So take it to about there. And then I'll go back for number 3 with the same trim again. You can decide where you want your danglies down. Do you want them here on the side cupping your face, or do you want them way at the back? I always like to have them cupping my face. So this one, I'd say would start about here. And then that's the other thing you're working out. Do I want the round bit at the top, or do I want this bit at the top? But I think I'm going to go with the small bit at the top. And yes. So I now know it's just a little bit in from the seam. So that's how I'll do it on both sides. What I'll do is add a little bit of hot glue. And add the first one. I'm quite used to doing this, so that's why you can see I use my fingers. But if you're not sure, if you've got an old pair of scissors, so that you don't burn your fingers, I'll demonstrate with this next one. Just put a little bit of glue on, and then you add the second dangler. So, as not to burn your fingers, you can use the scissors to apply pressure. Yep, and now I can repeat it on the other side. Stuck the arm, just check, and now I'm ready for the summer. So along with customising the visors, see I have to keep it on now, somebody might want something a bit more elaborate, so that's where with this one we've added feathers to it to make it a bit more elaborate, and then additional we'll customise a horn to go with the same costume. And then we've got bandanas, so just be a little bit more extra. You have a bandana, you've got the captain hats in pink, and I've always been a big doll collector.
My name is Hughbon Condor. I was born in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and I was interested in Carnival since I was a kid. It wasn't until '71 that when I'd finished schooling and started my apprenticeship in engineering that I met Arthur France, who introduced me to Carnival. He met me, I think it was in Hillcrest Avenue, and he said, Hughbon, he said, come here. What Leeds need is good designers like you. And I'm thinking, me, a designer? How does he know that? But you know, it's always good to give someone a good reputation to live up to. And I suddenly thought, yeah, maybe I am a good designer. And at the time I was working with a good friend of mine named James Brown. And you know, we both started making costume together. And he was a Trini, so obviously he's naturally skilled. Not. But you know, we worked together in building our first 3 or 4 costumes together. And after that point, you know, we just couldn't really agree on many elements of Carnival, so we decided to go separate. And so I began to work more on my own with my family, making costumes. The very first costume that I made, I remember trying to include some elements, bringing my engineering into it. I can't even remember the actual name of the costume, but I remember it had wings at the sides that sort of flapped around like that because I had the hinges on. And at the time, it was the competition was in the Mecca at Marion Centre. And so I understand, you know, that there are lots of elements that's important that one must take into consideration. And in fact, what I've actually developed is a system of saying there are 10 elements that you need to know before you actually start making a costume. I'm talking about big king and queen costumes now. I'm not talking about troop costumes, although in a lot of cases it still applies anyway. So the first thing is you need to know what the theme is, the materials, the workspace, how much money you have, how much time you have, skills, the method of constructions, transportation, storage, and the person wearing the costume. Often the theme can be prescribed. You know, there are some carnivals where they said the theme's going to be this for that particular year, and so you obviously then need to do research into that particular theme. I emphasize the word research because quite often a lot of people sort of like have an idea and they run with that one first idea. But there are so much materials now, you know, on the internet that no reason why you shouldn't see what other people have done and how that particular element has been treated. So I can move on then to materials. I like to think that you spend a lot of materials on development. You know, quite often, you know, you may see a particular fabric or a particular type of material and you think, yeah, that would be great for carnival. But then you need to research it and make sure that that fits. And often it's better to buy just a small piece and make sure you have access to larger quantities if you need that in the future. So you need to experiment. With the structures, you need lots of different materials for the structures. In fact, I have something like 53 different materials there that I use for the structures. The traditional way of making carnival costume is about using wire for wire bending and create the shapes. Plastic pipes that's used in plumbing, but then you have other smaller materials that can be used for joining and making joints. Cheap material, bamboo. Aluminium, again you have various sections, and they're used for making extensions and joints as well. Wood, very similar to this, but obviously it's more brittle. I remember making my first peacock using this fiberglass because I was dead excited about suddenly having materials that can extend, you know, way into the air and to the sides without it bending or break, you know, too heavy. So I remember using this. But I then came across this material, and this is called carbon fiber. Fishing rod is a typical use of carbon fiber. So in that particular size, for example, you can have rods that can extend up to 15 meters. I used this particular material, by the way, when I was making the fish. Don't know if you remember the lionfish, because the fins needed to be so like 3 meters on either side of the body. And if you use fiberglass for that length, what happened is that the fiberglass tended to dip at the end, whereby with this, it remains straight. And of course, it's a lot lighter. The only problem with this, it's really expensive. I mean, each of these rods cost 20 pounds. And I'm not going to mention how many rods we use in that particular design, but just that material alone was quite expensive. So that's just a little example of some of the materials that I use. You know, you mentioned about my workspace here. It has taken me a long time to acquire this, but it's expensive. Every month I need to pay X amount of money whether I'm actually getting any income or not. That's why I do find it annoying sometimes when people say, oh, well, you've got costumes, just bring me a costume. Remember that one from 19 whatever, can you bring that one out? Well, where have I been storing it, you know, and it's cost money to store. So that's important to understand, that workspace costs money. In effect, it's about then making a backpack, and then this is what I call a backpack. Sometimes it's called a harness as well, that fits around the shoulder, and then bend it into the back like that. Okay. From there, you bend the wires in the opposite direction, and then pull it apart and tape the wires. So when you see these smaller costumes that women that's half naked, quite often quite often it's just a structure like this where the wire metal bends over the arm, and then there's a string that goes from here down to the bottom and then back up to here. Okay, so that's the design. And the top, again, this can be bent to whatever shape you want, whether just natural curve that way or whatever. What it consists of is one length of wire that comes around this way, down, curved at the back, and comes at the other side. In the middle there are 2 crossbars and then three sections for holding bits fitting onto the costume, and then there are these 2 at the ends as well. These 2 at the ends just hooks in like that. And here's an example of wings just being fitted onto this. So it just slots in like that. Now this design as a backpack will be used, have been used on many designs now, because once this wire is attached and you have 3 mounting points, you can mount whatever you want on it. So you can use something central. This can be much bigger, up in the air, come down to the bottom, or whatever. So a lot of the work I've done this year and last year was very much around this structure. This is what's the main feather, the main set of feathers for the peacock is attached to. So it's designed so it just simply fits in there as a single point, and it's secured with this screw and nut. For it to rise up, it needs a system of pushing that up. When it goes up, it then needs to lock automatically, so it stays in an upright position. And to release it, it comes up from there, again down. Now when it's down, it's important that it doesn't go back up on its own. So this is designed as a kind of toggle mechanism so that it can't come back up unless you push that to allow it to go up. So when it's down, it stays down. Undo that. It goes up, then hooks in position. There's a spring there that keeps it locked in that position, so she can dance all day without a problem. And the system of pushing that up is using this strut. And this strut is attached to the feather. So when it's all together, the feather is in there. This strut pushes it up and keep it up. To bring it down, the strut is then depressed when it comes down. And when it's going up, then the strut opens up to push it all the way up.
I know you're watching, now I'm walking up my ways. My body good, you wanna bet me for a pace. You wanna hold me down and lock me up for days. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.